Hi, this is video number 381. Got up this morning. I wasn't going to do a video because I think I got something late last night, an email and a couple other things later this morning, so I decided I would do one. Nice day here today, sunny, pretty warm, breezy, but yeah, Eli bus duty today. He's been really good the last 2 days, but yesterday, it was yesterday morning, yes, he has this, the elf on the shelf thing. He has this little elf named Chippy. Okay, it was on the, they have a telescope in the one, in like the room beside the kitchen. And Chippy was sitting on top of, like the telescope's pointing straight up. Chippy's sitting on the lens on the top. And so Eli was like messing around with the eyepiece, and Chippy fell off, and he just absolutely freaked out. He ran into the living room and he was crying and the tears and was having a fit. And so I went out and picked Chippy up off the floor. And like that's a big no. You're not allowed to touch Chippy. That's one of the rules for some reason. I don't know, but I put him back up on top of the telescope there, and then Eli said, "Did you touch Chippy? You're not supposed to touch Chippy." I said, "Well," I said, I think it was a good thing because he was laying on the floor and he might have been hurt, so I put him back up there." So he kind of was okay with that. And then like my wife was in there talking to him. It's okay, it's okay. Like Pappy is like he has a special relationship with Santa Claus. It's okay. And I went in. I'm always like kind of like trying to be positive, and I said, yeah, like Santa and I are like this. We're like really tight, you know. We know each other really well, so and we sort of do like the spirit of Santa Claus in the family. So I don't know. He seemed to be okay with that. And this morning he got up, and Chippy was sitting on top of a cabinet, real high cabinet, and my daughter apparently put a cast on his leg. It's like a white paper towel. It's like kind of like a cast. And Eli didn't notice that for quite some time, till right before he was going to catch the bus. And so he saw that, and I said, "Well, Chippy probably hurt his leg when he fell yesterday, and it's probably a good thing that Pappy like put him up on the telescope so that, you know, he probably got fixed up at the North Pole, and like now he's here and he's taking it easy up there." And so Eli decided that he should have a piece of candy today while he's up there. So he pulled out a piece of chocolate, and I put it up there beside Chippy. So I wasn't sure if like when he went to the bus I should like maybe open it and just let the wrapper there and take the chocolate like Chippy ate it or something. So I thought, well, that's a bad idea because that just that keeps the lie of Santa Claus and the elf and all that going. And he might be devastated when he learns there's no Santa Claus. I don't know. They say about the age of 8 is when you kind of figure out now there's no Santa Claus. I don't know if I don't know. I kind of want to have a talk with him sometime and tell him about like the spirit of Santa Claus, the spirit of giving and caring for, you know, boys and girls and all that and other people. And I don't know. We'll have to see I'll have to play it by ear, but I don't know. Like he might say, "Well, you've all been lying to me all these years, all my life." I don't know. He's hard to understand sometimes. Let me see what else. We did the food pantry today already. It's about 3:15 in the afternoon here. That went well, but we do it with my brother-in-law and his wife, okay? And I mentioned about like the ring that my son got, and my brother-in-law's wife, as long as it wasn't an engagement ring, which it was. I said, well, it was, and then she's just like, it was a bad idea. She's just like, oh no, oh no, oh no, like, because the two of them they take their time in doing everything. They dated for 4 years. Whenever they purchase anything, they study it for like a long, long time before, you know, they make any kind of purchase. And it's just, so like getting engaged, and, you know, it's just, it was a bad idea. That was just one of the worst ideas I ever had. So like, now she's all upset, you know, and then like, my wife's all upset now, and like, so that's like, that affects me, you know. It's like I'm trying to get past this and sort of joke about it and this and that, and But it is, I mean, it's kind of upsetting for me too, because like they won't just let it go. It's like, this is, your nephew, your son here, like this, he's in love, he wants to, get married, like what? And they've known each other for actually years, the truth of the matter is they've known each other for years, but I don't know, it was a bad idea. I gotta be more careful about stuff like that. You see what I have for time. This Seuss-like book that I'm writing, it's almost finished. I'm about at 1,700 words. It's actually going to be probably, I would say, between 2,200 and 2,500, probably. I'm not sure yet how it should be illustrated. It sounds pretty good. As I read through it, it like flows and has like all of the stuff in about, like withdrawal and how this particular person in the story got in withdrawal and what's going on with them and symptoms and this and that. And the point of the story is, there are a few points, like validation. That's one of the goals. Like for people, mostly for people who they're going through this and they have no idea what it is. They have absolutely no idea what it is. This will kind of like give them an idea. It'll validate, like, yes, this is a real thing, and this is why it's happening. And so part of it too is awareness for, like, not only them but other people who know people going through this, like loved ones and so forth, who are helping the caregivers, making them more aware. Yes, this is a real thing. And it kind of like, it's not a children's book kind of format, but and also acceptance that all of these symptoms and so forth, there is a reason for it, and there's a certain thing you have to do to get through it. And that means like not taking the pills anymore, the drugs, and getting through it in whatever way you can. And then like the whole hope thing, like I'm saving the hope toward the end. Like the first part's kind of like gray, and because you're talking about symptoms and this and that, and as it goes on, like there are some characters that like giving kind of like hope, and then they start talking and saying things where the really big hope comes from. So it's kind of like goes from like very, very dark and gray to like blue skies and sunny and all that. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe at some point I will read it in a video here. I'll probably be done probably within the next week easily. And I still don't know, like the illustrations, if I should go with characters. I don't want to go with like kind of like silly characters like Dr. Seuss books have in them, but I don't want to go with real serious either. Maybe I don't need to have characters. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a matter more of like the colors, page colors, and I really don't know. I can't. Maybe once I'm finished, I get to the very end and I have the whole story, and then I'll come back and maybe it'll be more apparent to me. I don't know. And I can contact a couple people and see what they think too. Maybe send it to them, show it to them, and maybe they have some good ideas. So anyway, the book's coming along. It's kind of fun. It's a fun book to write, actually. I've shared it with Michelle, some of it, and she's written some things too, like, because it's like you're rhyming. It's sort of like doing rap, It's kind of cool. Okay, I got 3 emails altogether here. Okay, and this came from a person that I had read one of her emails before. So I'll just read through it here and then talk about it a little bit. Let's see how that goes. Okay, it says, hi Don, I'm at 19.5 months and I'm in another huge wave. Okay, at 16 months I went to Bali and had a few cocktails which eventuated in a horrific setback for 2 months. Okay, all the mental anguish returned along with the chronic fatigue, but literally overnight at the 18th month point, a glorious window opened up. Okay, so she went to Bali. She was feeling decent. She had a few drinks, and that gave her a 2-month setback. And I had read about the drinks before and the setback and that. So then 2 months later, at 18 months, she had this incredible window. Okay, now, as the days passed in this window, something felt different. I felt genuine joy, love, and happiness. I was content and had increased energy. I could go for a walk without being out of breath. I stopped thinking about benzo withdrawal entirely and even disconnected from Facebook groups and benzo buddies. I was no longer trapped within my own mind with dread, fear, and repetitive thoughts. It was wonderful and truly felt different from any other window I'd ever experienced. Okay. This continued for 20 days, and I genuinely believed I'd turned that magical corner in recovery and that this was my new improved normal. Okay, so this was a real window. This is like a window where you feel pretty much normal again, and like, like, okay, I'm back. I think I'm back now. Okay. She goes on, but then the fatigue slowly crept back in, and I started feeling grumpy and agitated again. I no longer wanted to do anything again and started feeling that underlying dread. 4 days ago, the wave hit another level. After spending a couple of days in the hospital with my daughter and already being unwell and with a cold, I became very sick. My cold became much worse, and the mental torture has returned. I'm trapped back in my mind, obsessing that this will never end, and terrified that I'll spend the rest of my life cycling between semi-functional and living in terror. I've not moved from my couch in 4 days, and even trying to watch TV agitates me. Okay, this part of it, I think I've read a lot of times where people get the flu or really, really bad colds or some other sort of sickness or illness. If you're still not completely well, it can set you back. It can cause symptoms to return. And so that's probably what has happened here. Even though some of these symptoms were starting to creep back in, when you get hit, I mean, you know how it is when you get hit, like when you're in withdrawal and you get hit with a flu or something. It's just nasty. That happened to me. It just makes you feel worse. It makes you feel about as bad as you can remember you ever were, and it makes you feel like you're not getting well and that you're never going to be well. Okay, so she asked, how can I go from living, laughing, socializing, working 6-hour days, and being completely in the moment to 100% torture again? I truly thought it may be over. I even started telling family and friends that it felt different this time, and I was on the road to full recovery. Stupid me. I was actually better in the first 10 months post-jump, even hosted last year's Christmas at my house. I baked, entertained, and was fully in the Christmas spirit. This year is far worse. I remember thinking last year at Christmas that by this time I'd be fully healed, and never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be worse. Have you heard of people getting worse in their second year? This wave has hit me so badly because my window was so wonderful. I'm not sure if the flu has set me back, or perhaps it was the alcohol-based hand sanitizer I used in the hospital a couple times, or just a random wave. I'm so exhausted. This polydrugging hell I've been trapped in has gone on for 6 years, 19 months off all meds, and I see no light at the end of the tunnel. My thoughts have become very dark. Okay. She asked the question about the second year. Let me see where she put that. Okay, she asked about do I know anyone whose second year was worse than the first? Yes, actually there are quite a few. I have known people who in the first year they have certain kinds of symptoms, and they think like, okay, if I get past these symptoms, then I'm gonna be good to go and I'm gonna be fine. And a lot of times those are the physical symptoms, but I've seen very often that sometimes the physical symptoms, many of them dissipate, but then the mental and emotional stuff comes in, the depression, the fear and the anxiety and all that, the panic attacks. And that's pretty, I won't say it's the norm by any means, but it's reasonably common. I've seen it quite a few times. I've seen it the other way too. I've talked about this young lady in Michigan that had the postpartum depression and was drugged. Her first year or year and a half was all mental. Really, really bad fear, black depression, horrible intrusive thoughts. And then most of that subsided except for the fear. And she started getting a lot of physical stuff in the second and third years. There's no rhyme or reason for that. I'm sure it's genetic, but I've heard of that. Like the first year is bad in certain ways, and then the second year, it's not usually an intensification of what you've already experienced. It's usually something else. And then there are people that they just kind of like stay in the same place. They don't really change one way or the other. They just kind of stay, like it's like kind of like having a wave continually. Okay, so I have heard of people getting worse in their second year. I've heard of quite a few people like that actually. And here she writes, "This wave has hit me so badly because my window was so wonderful. Sometimes I believe that when you've had an incredible window like she had, she was basically 100%, it sounds, and this wave has hit her so badly that now it's almost, she feels like she's back at the beginning, you know. And I think it just has to do with you're weary, you're tired, your hopes were like, they skyrocketed, you thought it's over, and then the extreme disappointment of like, oh, it's not over, here's a wave I feel about, and you think you're worse than you ever were, when in fact I don't think you are. But I mean, she has the flu and the cold too here. That makes a big difference. It really, really does. I mean, when you have the flu, I mean, I've had flus in my life that it feels like I'm dying. You know, it's just, you know, just by the flu itself. You don't forget about the withdrawal part. And then when you get an illness like that, it tends to uptick symptoms. Things that you had before come back. Anything that was like lingering gets, you know, more intense. It's really, really common. And before my withdrawal was completely over, I did get the flu once, and then not long off after that, I got the flu again. I got like twice within a few months, and it was bad. It was very, very nasty. Like it makes like, even now I can have, if I overdo things, if I super overstress myself physically or mentally, I can feel symptoms. I can feel them. They don't come back into like a wave or put me back into withdrawal, but I can feel them. But I think it's, you know, the illness, the flu, probably the cold is what's done this to her. Okay, the alcohol-based hand sanitizer. That's not. I think that's probably, yeah, which alcohol? That's like some other kind of alcohol. That's probably isopropyl, I would think. That's not part of this. Okay, I'm so exhausted. This polydrugging hell I've been trapped in. Okay, for 6 years. Yeah. See no light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, you did see light at the end of the tunnel. That's a key point here. You know, she saw light at the end of the tunnel. She was actually in the light, but I think, you know, like she could feel symptoms coming back, and then she got the flu or whatever this is, and like it gets very dark again. It gets and you almost forget, like, well, there was light. I did see light. So it's important when you're in a window to remember. And I know when, like, she was in a really, really good window for almost 3 weeks, that she thought it's over. Like, the door has opened. I'm free again. And I know that's got to be hard. That's got to be hard. That didn't happen to me. When my window opened from being in like the wave, the forever wave, it just kept opening until it was the door, and I came out, and that was it. Yeah, I'll mention a little bit more about that one later, because one of these other ones will kind of relate to it in some way. Okay, the next email. Hey, Don, I hope you're doing great. I don't want to count chickens before they hatch, but I have a feeling that something is changing. Actually, I had that for a few weeks already, perhaps even a month, but it always got clouded by the times I freaked out about something. I feel as if I have formed some kind of a baseline, and can now feel the pattern in which the symptoms present themselves. Basically, in my case, the pattern is the following. This entire withdrawal has felt like one big wave where some symptoms rev up and form smaller waves, so to speak. The symptoms that may rev up can be core symptoms, like the dizziness, for example, or something that lies dormant and then pops up, like the mild burning I get from time to time. I think the pattern has been like this since the very beginning. It's just I didn't feel it because of the intense suffering. Okay. Yesterday was really weird. I took the bus to another city to go shopping and kill some time, and that boaty feeling I get along with the sensations of passing out was pretty much gone. There was still some dizziness, but it was a lot better. Every time I've gone to another city in withdrawal, I've always worried about that particular feeling, but yesterday it just wasn't there. It felt really odd. Okay. Okay, like counting the chickens before they've hatched. Yeah, But he's noticing something different here. Things are changing, and that's how it was for me. I didn't get windows and waves, and this he doesn't get them either. It's kind of like one wave with fluctuations of intensity and symptoms and so forth. And I would get like some symptoms would leave for a short time and some would reappear. Like heart palpitations was the biggie for me. Like I had it for a very, very long time, and then it would leave, and then it would come back again for, it would leave for weeks and come back for a few days. It was like that. But he's noticing like patterns, and he tends to sometimes, like if he reads something, and he will do like we all do. You pull out like certain words and sentences, and you start freaking out, and that's anytime you freak out and withdrawal, like you can feel your symptoms a lot more. So that kind of has happened to him over time. But he's noticed like he did this trip yesterday in the bus, and it was better. It was better than it's usually been. The intense boaty feeling was not there. A little bit of dizziness. That's cool. That's good. The important thing is like there's change, and I know when we're in this, it feels like nothing's happening. I'm not getting better. Nothing's going on. I'm just staying at the same level of sickness when you're really not. Things are happening in your central nervous system, but a lot of times you just can't feel them. They don't manifest themselves in feeling better in some fashion, like a reduction in intensity or change or loss of some of the symptoms. So that's a good email there. That's a positive one. Okay, this next one is very interesting. And I'm going to try to, there's a lot in it, like a lot of very technical jargon that, I'm going to try to skip over most of that. Okay, what it is, I got an email from Susie Cohen, America's Pharmacist, and had a link to a paper. And it's about cannabidiol and something called 2-arachidonyl glycerol. I think they're components of cannabis, I think. It says the direct actions of cannabidiol and this other thing at GABA A receptors. Okay, it's like it was a study that was done, some research. Okay, and what I will do is read from the abstract. Okay, and I just want to make some points. I'm not going to go over everything here because I would have to actually read the entire paper to understand exactly what they're talking about. Okay, it says cannabidiol, CBD, is a major non-intoxicating component of cannabis and possesses anti-epileptic, anxiolytic, and anti-hyperalgesic properties. The mechanism of action of CBD in producing such effects remains unclear. Despite evidence that some endogenous and synthetic cannabinoids interact with GABA A receptors, no one has yet investigated the effects of CBD. Okay. Here we use 2 electrovoltage clamp, and they start describing the actual thing that they did, the study that they did. Okay, first of all, like what they're saying here is no one's actually figured out the mechanism of CBD and how it relates to the GABA A receptors. And there's some endogenous evidence, meaning like endogenous is like naturally occurring things in your body, like not things that you have taken, like pills or any kind of drug. So that there are actually cannabinoids in our body. I think they're called endocannabinoids, I believe. They are naturally occurring, and it does appear as though they do interact with GABA A receptors. I have read that. I think it was in the neuroscience textbook that I had. Okay, let me get down here further. So they were trying to study that, how CBD might interact with GABA A receptors. Let me get down here further and see. Okay, and what they're doing is they did some study trying to determine CBD and like its interaction with GABA A, if it actually does interact with GABA A receptors. Okay, I'm trying to find something that's not so technical and that makes some sense. Okay, and it talks about the results a little bit. It says, taken together, these results reveal a mode of action of CBD on specifically configured GABA A receptors that may be relevant to the anticonvulsant and anti-anxiolytic effects of the compound. Okay, now what they found was I should have highlighted this. There was a couple of sentences in here I did want to talk about. Okay, what they found was, first of all, you have to understand what a GABA A receptor is. Okay, not all GABA A receptors are the same in your body, in one individual's body. Okay, a GABA A receptor it's a pentamer, meaning that it has 5 subunits, and each subunit is made of it's actually probably what you would call a peptide chain. It's the chain of amino acids, and they are in the configuration of an alpha helix. Okay, and each one of these 5 alpha helices, they are connected. They're all connected in some fashion, but each one of these subunits, each one of these polypeptide chains is configured differently, or there can be different configurations. There are it's probably over a dozen different types of subunits with different configurations, different amino acid sequences. Okay, so not all GABA A receptors are identical, and so you have each of these subunits can be a different, we'll call it a molecule, a different polypeptide. Okay, and it has been found that benzos generally will bind. They will bind between two. I think it's between two of the subunits of a GABA A receptor, and it's usually an alpha. I forget what they are now. I did know it at one time. It's in the first thing that I wrote. That's, I think, in it's on this website. I entitled it Benzodiazepines, What Have They Done to My Brain? Okay, where I get into like all of the different subunits, the configurations, and where benzos bind. It's between an alpha and a beta, or an alpha and a gamma, or something like that. So that's where benzos bind. Now they found in this study apparently that CBD it can bind to certain GABA A receptors, like having different kinds of subunits, but it does it in a different sort of way than benzos. So what they're saying is basically that it can bind to GABA A receptors, but probably, I mean, the inference is, okay, since not all GABA A receptors are the same, it will bind to some and not others, kind of like what they're saying there. And that has a lot of, if you take that and apply it to what you see, since we all have a different, what do I want to say, like the proportion of the various kinds of subunits in our GABA A receptors probably it probably differs greatly among individuals. We are all different, and in that way we're very, very different apparently, and I think that probably accounts for why, like, a lot of the things that some people can take, supplements and so forth, that seem to have no effect, or actually maybe make the individual feel like they're getting some benefit from it, for someone else with possibly a different proportion of GABA A receptors that have specific types of subunits, it can like do them in. It can intensify symptoms, create different symptoms. So I think that may have a lot to do with like why some foods and different things affect people so very, very differently. And when she sent me this link, she also said her husband, who is in withdrawal, the CBD actually it had a very adverse effect on him, apparently, uptick of symptoms and that. So, but I have also read where some people, like CBD didn't do anything, or they think they got some sort of benefit from it. So there's no way to know. There's no way to know, like one way or the other, which one you are, unless you try it. You're taking a risk there when you do this, like all of these different supplements. Susie Cohen is into, she studies like the biochemistry of this and so forth, and she believes that a lot of times when we have like setbacks, the way people heal and so forth, a lot of the upticks of symptoms or setbacks, that it may have very much be due to what we have ingested. Since we are all different in that way, like we all have different proportions of the different types of GABA A receptors, that probably has a lot to do with setbacks. Like some people can eat this, that, or the other, or take this, that, or the other supplement and have no effect, and others it just has a very, very adverse effect. So that's interesting. I think you're trying to figure this whole thing out is just so very complicated. I still think that what happens is like the fight or flight thing, but molecularly, biomolecularly, there's a lot more to it than that. There's a reason for that. It's just very, very difficult. But this is an interesting paper. It's basically saying, they found that CBD can bind to GABA A receptors, but not all. I mean, there has to be a certain configuration of the subunits in the GABA molecules. That's or the GABA receptors. I don't know if like the 5 together is one molecule, if you would count them as 5 separate molecules, but it's very, very interesting. And early on, when I was doing that first thing, benzodiazepines, what have they done to my brain? That's one of the things that really struck me quite a bit, that not all GABA A receptors are the same. Some can be quite different. So even when you take, like a benzo, for instance, it will bind to some of your GABA A receptors, but not others, because they don't all have the same subunits. It really is interesting. The human body is amazing. It is absolutely, it's stunning, really, in its complexity. It's just unbelievable. So I'm thinking, we always say we're all different, and that's true. Genetically, we're all different, and this is certainly, a genetic sort of thing, like, because these receptors are made up of sequences of amino acids, and amino acids are coded for in the DNA and the RNA, and so we're all different, and that's why I think we get different kinds of symptoms. We get different durations of healing. Probably there are what I would call healing genes, that some people for some reason have really good ones, and they maybe suffering genes, where some people suffer well, like they kind of can go through it and not, it doesn't feel good, but they can somehow muddle their way through, or others have a much more difficult time. I don't know. But this is an interesting paper. It's gets right down into the GABA A receptors, and it's basically saying not all GABA A receptors are the same. Some, CBD will bind to some and not others. And it does explain why some people, they can take CBD and other kinds of things and have no problem, and some others it just does a number on them. So anyway, talked a good bit here, and I think the woman who had the setback with the alcohol and then has this cold, genetically, like she's different. Maybe some of the other things that she did, after she had this window, this great 20-day window, maybe some of the other things that she ingested somehow affected her GABA receptors, such that maybe for a lot of people it wouldn't have bothered them because of different proportions of the subunits and that. It's hard to say. It's just, it's still very, very, nobody's got this figured out. We know for certainty there is downregulation of GABA A receptors. We know absolutely benzos do that. But the rest, there's so much other stuff going on. I just, the window wave thing still, that's just so difficult for me to try to figure out. That seems to be a clue in all of this, but I haven't yet. I watched a video the other day about, it was about, it's the stuff that's in the fascia between the membranes in your body. It starts with an L-liminin, something like that, where it's got special properties. And the fascia, that has a lot to do with acupuncture and so forth, and how the specific kind of molecule, it's almost magical in things that it does. It's an adhesion type of molecule, and then somehow it directs cells into knowing what to do and what kind of cell they are and so forth. It's very, very, it reminds me very much of the book I read about acupuncture, where they go back to embryology and there are certain cells, like crescent cells they're called, and somehow I think, you know, they talk about the fascia a lot, and how there's some kind of component somewhere that somehow directs cells to do different kinds of things in the embryological stage. The cells know where to go and what to do, and because all of the different organs form in the same places, and it really is amazing. It really is amazing. I think that has something to do with this too, but they're probably all linked, I'm sure. But figuring out what that linkage is and what to do about it is really, that's another matter. But I still think that the body can, it almost has to heal itself. And I'm thinking there's not going to be a chemical or a drug or anything like that that's going to do it, that we can figure it out. I think we could do things, perhaps something like acupuncture, which is more mechanical, and it has to do with microelectricity too, to help to aid the body in figuring this out and healing more quickly. I think it almost seems like that has to be, something like that has to be the answer. I don't see like coming up with some anthropogenic substance that's going to turn the tide in this. I don't see that. So it all goes back to, like, time is the healer, and it is. It really, really is, because you're allowing the body has to heal itself. We're not going to find some magical chemical to make it heal itself. We might find things that can keep the body as healthy as possible while it's healing, but I don't think there's going to be some kind of magical substance that we find that's going to do this, unless it's something that's endogenous, the body already makes, and we can, like, help it to enhance that in some fashion. I don't know, but anyway, I'm almost at 37 minutes here. Long day today, long day. That thing at the food pantry and the engagement ring and, like, the reaction of my brother-in-law's wife, that was freaky. I don't know. I don't know. It is what it is. Like, some people, like, change in the family, and that is difficult. It's been difficult because, you know, he spends a lot of time now with someone else and not so much with the rest of the family, but it's how it goes. It's life, you know. There's change. We're constantly changing. To me, it makes life interesting, but to some people, they would rather have it just a straight line and that's it. Which, you know, is not, to me, it's kind of like boring, but whatever. So that's what I have for now. I think there's a bowl game on tonight, maybe one of the very, very minor bowls. So many bowl games now that it's sort of ridiculous, but it is football. Maybe I'll watch a Hallmark movie. Every now and then I'll watch a Hallmark movie. It's extremely low stress. There's always some kind of problem during the movie, but, you know, it's going to get straightened out. And they're almost all pretty close to exactly the same. Like, it's even the timing of, like, what happens, the kinds of things that happen during the movie. Like, I look at the clock, I say, well, it's an hour and 15 minutes now. This kind of thing is going to happen, and it always does. It's but they're pleasant. They're very pleasant. You know, they always end up, you know, like, they're in love and they're together and it's cool and life is good and everybody's happy and there's nice, pleasant music and all that. So yeah, I actually watch Hallmark movie. That's insane. But they're a little too sweet. You can only watch them every now and then. They're pretty sweet. It's like eating too much candy if you watch too many at a time. It gets to be kind of like, you know, sickening. So anyway, that's what I got. Probably watch some football. Maybe get a DVD out, a Christmas DVD and watch it, or maybe the movie It's a Wonderful Life. I haven't watched that one yet. I've always liked that one. So anyway, heading for Christmas here. Hope you're having a good day. I will be back Friday probably. You are healing, okay, and the things I went over here. Time is the healer, and I think that's evident in some of the stuff I talked about there, the CBD and the different things, and we're not going to be able to find something to heal us like time can do. But I think there maybe is something like acupuncture or something where we help the body to accelerate the healing, and we can feel it faster and maybe more intensely, you know, more quickly. I don't know, but anyway, that's what I have for now. Hang in there. Hope you have a nice rest of the day. You are healing. You are going to get better. This does end. It will end. It just takes time. As always, I'm right here, and I will be right here. Bye-bye.